So good morning from my side. Pleasure to be here again. As you read in the program, it says in 3 years to 500 million. That's not true. It took us 5 years. The speech I have here, I would love if there would be feedback from your side. So it's not necessary that I tell you in the next whatever 30, 35 minutes how it's done. I just give you a bit of an opinion, what I think is important on the side of entrepreneurship as well. Happy to be challenged from your side. First of all, I'm not sure whether you, well, somehow it's not really shown very nicely here. I don't know why this is. Technical support, please. Anyway, while the technicians can find out how to show the whole thing, what you see here on the left side basically is pictures I yesterday evening downloaded from Facebook, so my Facebook account. Yeah? Why do I show you this? It's just to give you a bit of a background how maybe my friends see me, and I come to why what your friends see of you is just one side of the coin. So as you heard, I studied in St. Gallen. I enjoyed it a lot. I had the opportunity to go abroad with SAMS twice. I was in Vienna, I was in Norway. I was even shortly in Thailand studying, so that was really cool. I built a company when I was a student here, doing something completely different. We were helping large Fortune 500 companies to build an employer brand. So we were the first ones in Switzerland engaging in employer branding. That was very nice. It was a good experience. Unfortunately, it was not scalable. So what I can tell you, consulting is not very scalable. It pays you well on a daily basis, but it will, over very, very long term, it can get big, but it's not something which gets big over 5 years or something like that. I sold that company when I graduated, and then I joined, as we heard, the Boston Consulting Group. Definitely a great company, met a lot of nice people, but for me it was quite early on clear that I don't want to become a partner in a consulting company, because you remain an employee, even if you're a partner there. You're basically a service agent, very well paid, interesting opportunities and so on, but that was not for me. I quit after 2 years and 3 months and went on a world trip, so that's some pictures you see here. I bought an old off-road car and traveled for 2 years around the planet. That was really a good adventure, met a lot of interesting people, and most of all, it gave me a lot of time to think what I want to do next. Maybe that's the first message. Take the time to think what you want to do. It's like when I talk to colleagues of mine, you know, who they are in a good job and they quit the job and the next day they start with a new job, you ask yourself sometimes, did you really take the time to think through what do you want to do? And another thing which I sometimes think is some people treat life as it was a dress rehearsal. It's not. You have one of it, and well, maybe not if you're Hindu, but in general, you know, you should make the right decisions. And I found it extremely valuable to have 2 years' time. That's a bit extreme, I know, but to have 2 years' time to think what I want to do next. And what I came up with was I want to be an entrepreneur again. I want to do something scalable. So that was the mistake I didn't want to repeat with my first company. And the third thing, I want to do something with a positive impact. And I think that's why I have been invited today. What we do is we do impact investing. And it took me a while to find out what I want to do. Let's be honest, I drove with an off-road car around the world, so probably I was not the greenest guy when I started off with that. But what I found out was a lot about climate change. And sometimes you have these like pivotal moments. For me, this was in the north of Alaska. I drove up the Dalton Highway. That's one of the most northern roads in the world. It's a gravel road for roughly 1,000 kilometers. You don't see anything except nature. And once a day, a truck is coming in your direction because the street goes up to Prudhoe Bay, where there are oil fields. And so I drove up there. It was beautiful, took pictures of moose and stuff like that. And suddenly there was an old man standing on the right side of the road, and you don't see anybody for the whole day. And then he was waving like this to make me stop. So I stopped, and he said, "Oh, sorry, can you do me a favor? My truck is stuck, and can you bring me up back to the base?" And this truck was like a bit on the side of the road in the mud, and I couldn't help him to get the truck out. It was too heavy, but I gave him a ride, and that was for 7 hours I gave him a ride to reach Prudhoe Bay. And I asked him, so why the hell did he drive into the mud? And he said, you know, I do this for 25 years now, and in these 25 years, I got like, I know this road by heart, so I watch TV when I drive. And apparently, sometimes you just lose the road a bit, but it's not a problem because up there it's permafrost. So he says, you know, mostly it's very flat, so if you go off the road, it gets a bit bumpy, and then you know that you have to put your eyes back on the street and you go back to the street. And he said for 25 years this has worked, and this was the first year when there was not permafrost anymore, at least not the first 20 centimeters. This was mud. And this, for me, this was actually the point when I really started to research much more about climate change. I had heard of climate change before. We had at the University of St. Gallen lessons about climate change, which I took, okay, yeah, climate change, I don't feel it really. Look outside. But when you really start researching it, and not necessarily reading, you know, papers from Greenpeace, but look at the papers from the International Panel on Climate Change, read the Stern report from Lord Stern, you check numbers there. And you don't need to be an ecologist to understand that, yes, we do have a big problem here. And the more I read about, the more it came to me that, well, a lot of investment is needed only to fulfill what the politicians want today. And the politicians don't even know what they will want in the future. It will be much more. So that's definitely a global mega trend lasting for the next 50, 100 years or something like that. And when this was all like, you know, this, I tell you this now in 2 minutes, it took me like half a year to get a bit more into that topic then. And that's when I came up with the idea of an investment company focusing on infrastructure in the context of climate change. So that's what SUSI is doing. We invest in the context of climate change. Now, animated slides you should not really use, but I really like that. So on the right side, you see the picture how I present myself to our clients. Our clients are investors. That's pension fund managers, insurance managers, and family offices. They're not really interested in my travel and party stuff and so on. They want to know who you are. And they're, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, make sure that your outside picture, let me help you on that, that the picture that the public knows of you should be a picture you really can stand behind. And on the other hand, you should also be sure that on Facebook or any other social platform you don't have pictures you definitely don't want to stand behind. Maybe in young years this is quite important to know. What you can do is put some proof points around yourself. So you have a message, you claim who you are. I claim I'm an expert on financing the energy transition. Now that's an easy claim. How can I prove that? So I can say, oh, you know, I did a PhD, which was, well, sort of, well, not really related to that topic, but you can bring it a bit in that direction. Much more what you can do is write a book. Whenever you write a book, you're an expert. That's an automatic effect. Most people don't read it, and definitely like the media doesn't read it, but as soon as you wrote the book, you're an expert on the topic, you get invited to have speeches. And then you can tell people what is in the book in an executive summary. Another good thing about writing a book, make sure that your name is on the cover of the book. You don't necessarily need to write it. You need to be the publisher. And so I learned this from another very successful entrepreneur, a female entrepreneur in Zurich. I don't say the name, but she asked me to contribute to her book. And I found out, shit, I do all the work and she has the name on the cover. And so I said, well, I should do this myself as well. And so I published this book. It's called The Financing of the Energy Transition. I wrote 3 chapters and 18 other chapters experts wrote. And so it's a good book. It's really worth to read it. I think there's a lot of knowledge transferred in there. But the nice thing for me is everybody says Tobias Reichmuth wrote the book on the financing on the energy transition. So yeah, then you can also mention that you did work before with BCG or any other big brand name. This gives trust a bit, yeah, that you have been at the university and so on. So that's quite important to the outside. Yeah, first piece of advice, external perception, not to be underestimated. People do research on you when they see you the first time. By the way, we also research every applicant we get. We look what kind of Facebook profile somebody who wants to do an internship or have a job with us has. And sometimes we can ask some questions on why certain pictures are there. Now, to the company, for some reason the slide is cut off. I don't really know why. CO2 levels, it should say, in global warming, past and future, and I'm sure all of you have seen this graphic. Be sure that most of the pension fund managers have not seen this graphic. And so what you tell them is, you say, guys, you know, climate change is nothing new. It has always been there. Every sort of 100,000 years you have peaks, but we are right now in a situation when you have a CO2 level which is as high as it never has been before. And if we really have a correlation between temperature and CO2, we might run into a big problem. And it looks like there is a correlation. That's what 97% of scientists say. So I don't go there as a missionary and tell them we need to fight climate change. I just tell them, look, these are the facts. So what do we make as an economist out of these facts? We need to invest together. And now the nice thing here is, on this slide, all investors have a problem right now. It's a low interest rate environment. What does it mean? If you are a pension fund manager, you should try to make roughly 3.75% return per year to be sure that you can pay out enough money while not losing your capital stock to the pensioners. Right now, this is really difficult. You had an excellent year on the stock market, but let's be honest, nobody knows whether you have an excellent year on the stock market or not. It's gambling. Pretty much everybody probably accepts that. On the other side, on the safe side, as a pension fund manager, you invest 60% of your assets in bonds. Now, when I started the company, a Swiss government bond was yielding roughly 3%, 10 years, risk-free investments, 3% return. It has been on 6 or 8% even. Right now, it's at minus 0.2. You give money to the state and you pay to be able to give money to the state. And you want to have 3.75%. So you do have a problem right now, meaning a lot of investors are desperately seeking alternative investments. And now we come to a problem, because they want to have a better return, but they're not willing to take much more risk. So what they look for is something which delivers a stable annual distribution. That's what they really want. It's called fixed income. And that's exactly what we do. As in our company, we say we want to produce fixed income investment products which help fighting climate change. So we bring together basically two, I would say, two mega trends right now: infrastructure investments and climate change. And it turns out that we seem to be at the right place with the right products right now. So this is the company. SUSI stands for Sustainable SUSI Investments. It's on the left side, it's me and Otto von Troschke, he's my co-founder. We are still the majority shareholders of the company. As you can see, we have quite a senior board there. I come to the reason why it's helpful to have quite a senior board early on. Just for those who may be not so familiar with the faces, it's Jörg Buchel, former CEO of Swiss Postal Services and Postbank, Kai-Uwe Ricke, former CEO of Deutsche Telekom. Then we have Moritz Leuenberger, 15-year energy minister of Switzerland, twice president of Switzerland. Uwe Krüger, Professor Uwe Krüger. He is CEO of Atkins before he was CEO of Oerlikon Industries. Stefanie Schoss was also in St. Gallen, studied together with me, runs a family office with her husband, is an entrepreneur, and Björn Bayern is a lawyer. What do? We invest in infrastructure. What is infrastructure? Something you can touch. We don't buy shares. We don't invest in companies. What we finance is a power plant which is standing there, basically. And we have 3 divisions. Division number 1, what we started with, is renewable energy. We finance solar and wind parks. Right now in 6 countries. We have invested the first fund of roughly 180 million euros. Now we are at the second one, which is 300 million. It's a nice growth path. The next one should be 1 billion. Believe me, first 10 millions, that's the toughest work. Afterwards, it gets much easier. First 10 millions, nobody wants to be your first investor. So you need to find kind of a good story to convince somebody to be your first investor, or to bring some people together in a club deal that nobody has the feeling that he is the first one. Getting money is easy when you have money. When you have no money, it's fucking difficult. Second topic, energy efficiency. I will explain it a bit more details in one slide later. We realized that if you want to have this energy transition happening, it doesn't work with renewable energy alone. You also need to basically become much more efficient in the consumption. Now, what we did, we sat together with companies like Siemens, Johnson Controls, Honeywell, Schneider Electric, ABB, and asked them, so why is nothing happening? Is it so difficult to become more energy efficient? And all those technology people told us, no, technology is available, it's not rocket science, it's standard. If you want to renovate these university buildings here, you easily can save 30% just by installing LED lights, by having a better heating system, sensors, new boilers, and so on. And said, oh, okay, nice. So is the payback bad? And said, well, the payback is roughly 6 to 7 years in building technology. Industrial appliances is sometimes 5 to 6 years. LED lights is often below 4 years. And I said, well, that's excellent. So what's how long can you use this technology? So, 15 years to heating system. And so I said, well, if you get your money back after 6 years, and then you have another 9 years where you save money, everybody should get a new heating. Why is not every university getting new heating systems? Yeah? And then we asked, so can you guarantee this? And all these companies said, yes, yes. If Siemens renovates this building, they can give you a hard guarantee that you save 30% for the next 10 years. Provided they get the operation and maintenance contract, that's how they make money. But you're on the safe side. And so with this information, I was kind of a bit stunned and said, well, if everything is so easy, so why the heck is not much more done in this field? And they said, well, you know, the problem is all our clients, they don't want to take money in their hands because it's not their core business. They say industrial companies, for example, if it's not core business, any measure which has a payback of more than 3 years is not taken into account. And it's really 3 years. That's what we hear everywhere. If you have a talk with the mayor of a German city, let's take Mainz, which is not in the best financial situation right now. They tell you, we would love to do it, but we are not allowed to take additional debt on our balance sheet. In German, the so-called Schuldenbremse. So what we found is technology is available, projects are available everywhere, but what is needed is a so-called off-balance sheet financing solution. What does it mean? It means that we give money to a university, for example. The university does not have to put it on their books as debt or equity. We have it on our books. So we provide just a service, and in return for this service, we get part of the resulting savings. I'll quickly show you how this looks. 1 sec. So here you have a property owner, energy cost that would be a large university campus of 20 million euros a year. That's for electricity, maybe oil or gas, water and everything. You have a technology company, that could be Siemens, and then you have the fund. So the technology company does an audit, they walk with the engineers 2-3 days through the buildings, and they come back and say, you know what, if you invest once your annual energy consumption, so that's 20 million, into the new heating, the LED lights, and so on, we can guarantee that you save 25% energy. And 25% energy equals savings of 5 million a year. Your investment was 20, after 4 years you have your money back. But maybe then the dean of the university says, you know, we just built a new whatever science center, we don't have money for 5 million or 20 million even. We cannot do that. And then Siemens says, well, you know what, we also cannot do it anymore because we as a company, we face Basel II and Basel III. Our solvency regulations are at stake. So sorry, we cannot put our own money for financing this. And that's when we come into the plan. And we say, okay, we provide the 20 million, but in return, we want to get, as an example here, 70% of the annual savings. So of the 5 million savings, we get 3.5 per year for the next 10 years. We did an investment of 20 million for 10 years and get back 35 million. Seems to be a good investment. Our risk on the technology side is very limited because Siemens guarantees us this savings. Our only risk is that the university, let's say it's a private one, goes bankrupt. Then we would have a problem. So we need to be on the safe side when we invest. We do basically an investment grade rating. Only if we reach BBB-, we bought the Standard & Poor's tool, we can do the investment. But with this, we have really solved the gap. It showed that we were extremely successful in fundraising. It took us 12 months to raise 300 million only for this fund. That was much better than we would have hoped for. Now we are deploying the capital. And I think if this works, and it seems to work right now, that's going to be a huge business. And we will be the first one with a good track record there. As far as I know, we are right now the market leader globally. Doesn't mean that UBS or any big fund like Partners Group could not do the same, but by the time they start doing that, we will have a track record, and then we should be on ice height to make a bigger fund as well. The third topic, I go quickly back, is energy storage. Also a logical consequence, if you have solar and wind installations, but they are not 24/7 available, you still need coal-fired power plants, atomic power plants, and so on. So the energy transition will only work if you have storage capacity. We are right now at the point where technology is available, prices go down. I would make a bet that prices in energy storage capacity go down on a similar level like they did with solar modules, means roughly 70% over the next 10 years. And then you're in business. We are right now putting up a team. I hope that we have a fund starting to invest by end of Q3. Again, investors like the topic. It's something to touch. It's logical. It's easy to understand. That's also something after the financial crisis, many investors want to invest in something they can understand. If you come with a hedge fund, people don't really want to talk with you because they don't understand it. The flavor of the day of hedge funds, that was like in 1999 or 2002 or something like that, when you could come with, we have a secret formula we cannot explain you, but you will make a lot of money with us. That doesn't work anymore. So that's the company. It has 35 employees right now. As I said, the assets are a bit above 500 million. Our goal is that by the end of 2016, we have 1 billion. So we grow quite fast. We just right now open an office in Frankfurt. We have an office in Zurich and an office in Luxembourg. I showed that. Unfortunately, you can read again. Sustainability is at the core of our business. Now, interesting. That's important for our employees. And it's not very important for our investors. I want to be very honest with you. If we speak with pension funds, what is their task? Their task is one single thing: get the 3.75% each year. And they will not get a bonus if they get 100 tons of CO2 saved with that. So what I realized early on, my first presentation was, we are the first real investors with a measurable CO2 impact. We can calculate how many tons of CO2 we save. That was my first bullet point. Now it comes on page 27. It's not important to them. What they want to know is risk, return, correlation, liquidity. These are the main topics they ask for. Luckily, we can provide a very good solution to all that. We have a good return, we have limited risk, and we have a very low correlation. And luckily, they don't really need liquidity because those are long-term investors. But what I learned is impact investing may be important for some family offices. It seems to get more and more important for the Dutch investors. So Dutch pensions actually really ask for that. They do a due diligence on it. In Switzerland, there is maybe 2 pensions which really look into it. And all the rest is, oh, that's nice to have. But if I would have come and say, look, it's an oil fund which has a 5% annual dividend, is, oh, that's also very nice to have. So anyway, what we see for us as a company, it's important. We only do investments when we can really calculate the savings, otherwise we don't invest. Here you just have some examples of project savings with the current 300 million renewable fund. We save the equivalent of roughly 500,000 cars a year. Why do we put this number there? So that investors can, imagine something. If I tell them we save, I don't know how many tons of CO2, they don't know what it is, but in cars everybody can calculate. Now to the, in my eyes, most important part of my presentation, and I leave now with my company, and you're invited to ask questions if you have any questions about the company or about energy transition, renewables, and so on. How do you build a company that reaches in 5 years 500 million and it is successful? I think the first thing when you found your company is you need to provide this kind of good feeling to your clients. And it does not matter whether you have an internet company selling shoes or whether you're an investment fund. It's always the same. At the end of the day, it's a lot about trust. Build trust. Your clients don't know you on the first day. Maybe you are super good at what you do, but how should I know? I need to get like this kind of, additional information to build up the trust. And that's, for example, when you can involve people who have a name. So we got our board in the first year together. Luckily, let's say they somehow shared our mission. They said, wow, that's cool. We really like to support that. We didn't pay money to them. The only thing what we did, we said you get shares. You get share options, so they are entrepreneurial motivated. With the growth we had, it paid more than well for them right now, but they took a risk. They said, we like to do that. And when we went then to investors and they saw, Caio Vericke is on this board. Well, he must certainly have done a check before he went on that board because he can lose his face or something like that. So that helps a lot. Produce a steady stream of good news. Really difficult. Even if everything goes wrong and you don't achieve your milestones and you're slower and it costs more than you thought and people who you thought you can close a deal will not close a deal with you, to the outside you need to remain optimistic all the time. And that's tough sometimes. Yeah? I mean, we decided we write quarterly newsletters. Now every quarter we can write something great and show the new offices and the new wind farms and whatever. And we have a lot of cool stuff to talk about. In the first 2 years, there was not really much cool stuff to talk about. So you need to find anything which is kind of sort of nice. It's like, we got the approval of our fund. That's something easy. You can't get an approval of a fund without money. But make big news and find pictures behind and whatever. Because people need to believe that you are there to stay there. And if you come as a startup and say, it's really difficult, we're not sure whether we make it, well, you will not get many clients. So. Become an expert, I already talked about that. Write a book if you can, publish articles and so on. And then, as I said, make sure nobody is your first client. So get testimonials. if I would be the first, you know, for a friend of mine founded Amorana. Amorana is a sex toy shop in Switzerland, very successful. Yeah. Would you like to be the first one ordering there? You could think, well, maybe they take my address, maybe I get blackmailed afterwards, who knows? Is it sure that they really deliver it to me? Is the payment safe? You don't want to be there. But if you can read that 500 other people put in testimonials, which sometimes is difficult in a sex shop with your name, I know. But anyway, what they did, for example, they got masses. They could show transactions. They got verified transactions. They said, we have done our first 1,000 transactions. They did it with friends. But they had an independent notary basically signing a paper. These guys have done 1,000 transactions. There was no problem. Payment was always solid. So they built trust in that way. But that's something very important. Get skin in the game, especially important when you're in the investment business. If you're asked, so how much did you invest? And you say, nothing. Yeah? Very difficult. So what you need to be able to show, even if it's little, that for you, you have invested a lot. So when I came back from my world trip, I was more or less blank. I have spent the money I made before. But I needed to do something about that. So what I did, I asked my father for a loan. I put this loan at stake, and I could tell everybody, look, I invested 50,000 money, which I actually don't even had. But it gave investors a sort of a feeling, well, he has the same, somehow the same risk as when we invest in this company or later in the funds. What we do nowadays is we have a model where every single investor, every single employee invests 30% of his annual bonus in our funds. And this is a very good alignment of interest, because I really can say, look, down to the associate, everybody working for this company is invested in the funds you as a pension fund are also invested in. And not just with a bit, but with 30% of the bonus. Another 30% of the bonus are invested in the company itself. So people get participations in the company. This gives a good alignment of interest, and it makes everybody being an entrepreneur. For us, it will be very expensive if the company grows, but I'm happy to do that because if everybody of my employees believes that he can really make a big thing here, it's much better than if you're just an employee. Be professional from day one. You know, even if it takes more money, get the right office address if you have daily interaction with clients. Get the right business cards and so on. Just be professional there. Focus on efficiency. Get your product to the market. Don't invest time in winning another 2 business plan contests. If you need to write a business plan, okay, you can hand it into a business plan contest, but don't lose much time on it. Maybe you win 50,000 francs, that's very nice, but believe me, later on you think the 4 months I spent on winning that business plan contest, I rather would have spent in building up my product than on the 50,000 francs. 50,000 francs sounds like a lot of money in the first year, but later on it's not much money and you think, oh, I should have taken a loan, but be much faster to the market. Build a track record. You know, what we did, for example, the first investors in the company, we said, you can invest in the company at a quite low valuation, but you need to provide 1 million of capital to build the first solar park. So that when we went out to the big investors, the pension funds and so on, we could say, look, we have invested 1 million, up and running solar park, we know how to do this. We had a little bit of track record, but it was good enough to get trust built up again. Then get smart money. First of all, understand the needs of your clients. So for example, we needed to learn to understand that impact is not really invested for our clients, it's more interesting for the company. So we needed to adapt our message to look here, low risk, stable returns, low correlation. Get smart money. So the money you take into your company, don't take the first money you can get. Much more important is to get money with the right knowledge behind, the right connections behind. So we were very lucky. We got the first investor was Alex Samwer. Alex Samwer is a German internet entrepreneur, super successful. He invested in my company. This helped with 2 things. Because he invested, everybody else wanted to invest. Because they thought, wow, he has golden hands, so if he invests, it must be great. Second thing is he gave me some first introductions to family offices and so on. And this helped a lot, of course. And then another thing, you should be 1 step ahead of growth, meaning even if you invest more money than you maybe would have planned for, it might be worth it.
Sorry to interrupt, but we have on pressure, which is there's going to
I have one more slide.
We have a class afterwards here at 12:30, so...
Yeah, 5 minutes will do. So, as I said, like what we do right now, the 35 people, I don't need 35 people to run the funds we have currently. I need the 35 people for the company I want to build up. So we built the platform right now, which is quite large. We spend a lot of money. We don't make high returns for our shareholders right now. but we are ready to tackle 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion. So that's what I mean with, be a step ahead of your own growth. So next, second slide here, yourself, be entrepreneurial to the core. What does it mean? Do it 100% or don't do it. If somebody comes to me with a business plan and says, yeah, I work at UBS, but I decided to scale down to 60% and 40% of my time I invest in my company, I only can say, well, that's great, but come back to me when you invest 100% of your time in your company. You must believe in the thing, and if you still think that you need to have, a safe harbor with your monthly salary or something like this, it just tells me that you don't believe in the thing you're doing yet. Be sure that you know what your company is doing. First thing in my company, I know how to repair a copy machine by now, which is useful because I can expect everybody else. If an intern comes and says, I don't know how to repair a copy machine, I can quickly show him. It's helpful if you have done everything. Do whatever you expect your employees to do. Work harder than the rest. If you go home at 6, you cannot expect your people to stay till 8. Learn to delegate. Tough learning, but very important, otherwise you never can get growth here. Lead, but accept that you're not always right is also tough sometimes. You're the boss, it's your company, you have an idea what you want to do. If you get contradiction, you must be able to deal with that. And you cannot just turn it down all the time, because sooner or later people will stop contradict you, and then a lot of valuable information is lost. But sometimes it's tough, and you have to build up the right environment that you are open for criticism. Endurance. Who is a successful entrepreneur? Not necessarily the one with the best idea, but maybe it's this guy who had a very good idea, as good as somebody else, but he tried it 2 months longer. It's luck. In every company I know, sooner or later, luck was striking you. It took us 2.5 years. Then suddenly a big investor invested 10 million, and since then it's going like that. But before that, I was not really sure whether the company would make it or not. We just had to wait for 2.5 years, and in these 2.5 years, as I said, remain optimistic. Get the right team around you. Most important point here, you don't need devil's advocates. If you form a team and your partner, and you have a partner who is telling you what could go wrong, get rid of the partner. If you want to know what can get wrong, you can hire a lawyer or have a friend. Yeah? But in the team, you need to have optimists. Yes, there will be obstacles, there will be more problems than you thought of, but if you just start thinking about those, you will never make big steps. And try to get people with complementary skills. Even you have a very good friend from University of St. Gallen who studied exactly the same as you. Maybe that's a good friend, but maybe it's not the ideal co-founder. Motivation I talked already about, so people who work with you should be motivated by similar goals. And then, as I said, try to share the upside. That's the most important thing. Once again, building trust, get your product to the market, build early on a platform for growth, do it 100%, and you don't need a devil's advocate. This I leave out. So I'm done, and what it says up there is we offer great internships, so whoever is interested in our topic, it's careers@susi-partners.ch, and we are happy to read any application. Not sure whether I have time for questions now.
In fact, we're going to have Tobias with us again in the panel about banking and finance, and we're going to have a networking session afterwards, so I guess then we would have time for discussing, because it's really very inspirational. Thank you so much.
That was